Hi, I'm Andrew Tsao. In this online episode of Backstory, we're going to preview the film Perfect 10. It's the story of a woman who returns to her hometown for a 10-year high school reunion and reconnects with her unrequited crush, runs into a swarm of unresolved feelings, and ultimately experiences a life-changing series of events. Now, Lindy and Kris Boustedt are the co-writers and co-directors of Perfect 10. And I want to say thank you for joining us. Welcome to Backstory.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. Let's start our conversation out with a piece of dialogue from the film. There's a moment where a character says to another character, "Who are you?" To which she replies, "I'm the girl who's done settling." That said so much to me, and it made me think about what I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is you've made a film that does not settle for easy answers to a very, very challenging topic. What's the personal backstory of this project?
Well, thank you. First, it's based on a little bit on my life. So
Okay.
I had a boy who I was in love with in high school who told me if I was skinny, I'd be perfect.
This was not me, by the way.
No.
Okay, good.
I met you later.
Yeah.
And and I was approaching my 10-year high school reunion,
Okay.
and weirdly enough, I still believed that. Like,
So that lingered for you through all of this
for 10
time.
years. It lingered.
And
for
was
me.
this, did you keep this private, or did you share it with close friends? Or?
Pretty private,
Okay.
but with your close friends, body image is just, it's always. That's the thing that is great about that we use the 10-year high school reunion to kind of tell a body image stories, because everybody has those issues.
Right.
Guys are worried they're losing too much hair, or they've got, is the beer belly coming, or whatever else, or do they still have that jock, label? And then girls, it's a whole slew of things. And so the fact that I had that still in my mind and I still believed it to a sense, I said, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I am successful. I've married the love of my life. I have someone who accepts me and loves me for who I am. Why do I still think this? And that was kind of the crux of writing the screenplay. It was like, this is a story I need to get out.
Now, you chose to work together on this.
Yes.
So obviously this story of yours became your story in a way, because you were part of the creative team, not only in writing it, but directing it. What was that like for you, Kris?
It was great. I mean, the collaboration was amazing. And what I found interesting was that even though it wasn't my story personally, I ended up, and Lindy can corroborate this, but I ended up writing scenes that went further or in directions that Lindy was like, maybe afraid is too strong a word, but just didn't know how to get there. But because I was somewhat detached from the story, I was able to sort of piece together the context that Lindy was trying to get at.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's great when you find a writing partner like that is able to sees what you really need to say, but you may not have the courage to say it.
Yeah.
And especially with it being so personal, it was great. It became so that after a while, we'd been doing a number of drafts, we forgot who wrote what.
Right.
I mean, because really our voices were
Right.
one.
Right.
And it's really a greater story.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I did have the girl that I had a crush on in, I was fourth grade or something. I still remember to this day. She was like, "Well, yeah, I would like you if you were thinner." Like, I mean, it was almost exactly the same line as what you had. So, I mean, there was definitely a personal connection there. And we have had, at all of the Q&As for the film, as we've played it around the world, because it's about a woman who goes back to her 10-year reunion, leaving her husband at home, purposely trying to seek a connection with her high school crush. People are like, "So you're married still?"
But people make the connection right away.
Yeah, but that's where the fiction of the movie. I mean, I did go to the 10-year reunion. I actually met the guy. He's quite nice.
He realized things he said when he was 16. Probably not the smartest.
No, he's actually a very lovely person. But so that's where the fiction of the story came in. But we figured, there's really no conflict there. People just being like, things are great now. There's no movie there.
And that's important, is that we didn't want a villain for the story either.
No, that makes it easy.
It makes it. It's a cop out. It makes it. And really, Danny's not a villain. He went through the same things, as everybody else did. He was 16 when he said that. Of course, he has no idea the ramifications. Boys when they're 30 have no idea the ramifications. But
and actually, I think that's kind of, I suppose, the oddest part about our collaboration, since in the story world, if I am the husband,
Yeah.
he should be my nemesis.
That's right.
And yet, as a director, I was the most protective of the Danny character. Because on set, like, it's easy, you know, when you hear people talking like on the lunch break or something, they're like, oh God, Danny's such a dick, you know, like, and I would like
And you're
super
going,
like,
wait
no,
a minute, wait a
no, because I didn't want anyone even to think that
Yeah.
on set. Like, I didn't want any of the crew to think like,
Yeah.
oh, he's the bad guy. I didn't want any of the other cast
Yeah.
members to think that. I really wanted him to be a complete person. Who's as lonely as
Has
the main
his own
character.
journey
And
as well.
Exactly.
So we're in a time where, you know, let's call it for scholarly sakes, post-feminist.
Okay.
But you're working in the film industry where stereotype, cliche, body image, sexuality are still the mainstay of how the female especially and the male movie star are sold to us
Yeah.
as part of the package.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you're in the industry, but you've clearly come into it subverting some of this. You must have had a lot of conversations about this aspect of how you decided to make films. Can you share some of that with us?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
the one thing I'll start with is just to say that, you know, one of the things that we really were trying to do when we made the film was to give a presentation of a character that people normally don't see in the lead role. Like,
Okay.
you know, Mara would typically be the best friend character.
Right.
You know, like the plucky Bonnie Hunt kind of sidekick
Right.
to the, you know, to the main actress. And
Right.
so we wanted to flip that. And then we figured, well, if we do this, why not use the trappings of a standard romantic comedy to put a new present in an old box, kind of. Because that we felt would make it more
You're
palatable.
changing the places that
Yeah,
people
exactly.
are stereotypically
Yeah,
put in.
exactly. So it's more palatable. It still plays into, because there's nothing wrong, I don't think. Well, let me rephrase that. There are a lot of things that work about the way that romantic love is portrayed in films,
Yeah.
and that's something that people aspire to, and I think that's completely fine. So why not go on that path, but with different characters
Yeah.
in a different setting? Yeah.
So you're working within a context you understand as an industry standard or norm, but you have found a way to give a very personal take and tell the story you want to tell.
Yeah.
And use that form, which I think kind of shows in the sophistication of the storytelling. So let's talk a little bit about that kind of storytelling. The tone is also unique because I thought about it after I saw it, and I said, you know, if I was to describe this to a friend, you know, immediately they go, "Is it a comedy?" And I go, "Well, it's funny." "Oh, it's a romantic comedy." It is, but you're not in the way you think.
Yeah.
"Oh, it's a drama." No, you know.
Yeah.
Let's go into that and talk about
Yeah, I think we ended up unconventional dramatic comedy, or
I guess was, yeah, the closest.
unconventional dramatic comedy.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
what we want to do as filmmakers is we always want to be honest,
Yeah.
and we don't want to just be honest just to like beat you over the head with honesty. We want it to be constructive. So we've called it like constructive truth.
Yeah.
And so we want people to be able to take away something that they can then apply, you know, in their own lives. It's something that we like to see representations of ourselves on screen. And so it just felt like, yes, we kind of have this model of these different things, but we just wanted at every point for it to be absolutely 100% honest.
So let the authentic, real story come through and let others go ahead and try to put the label on it.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that's why it's funny, is because
Yeah.
life is funny.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you know, it's not always
Yeah.
100% dramatic.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if it was, suicide rate would probably be a lot higher. You know, and so things are inherently humorous and sad and everything about it. So so it just felt right for
Yeah.
us in approaching this story.
Yeah.
That's
Well, you know, it's I think that there's a quote, you know, love stories are best told against the specter of death. I think dramatic stories are best told in a veil of comedy and vice versa. You know, comedic stories are best told with somewhat dramatic situations. Because I think the dichotomy between the two is what really brings out conflict and tension in the story. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you can only experience true love if you experience true despair. I mean, you have to have the kind of balance.
Okay. Well, now let's take a look at the trailer for Perfect 10.
Mara, hello. You should have received all the invitations and reminders, but this weekend is our 10-year high school reunion. Can you believe it's been 10 years? Oh, isn't it crazy? I almost forgot. You'll never guess who just asked if about you. Danny Thompson!
You had a crush on him. That shouldn't make you stupid.
It was a little more than a crush. I get worried that you're settling for me, that you can do better.
Honey, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me.
You're telling me that if someone amazing came along, you wouldn't be tempted.
I want to show him that I'm not ugly anymore. You know, that he should have loved me.
Have fun this weekend.
I'll try.
How did we survive all this?
Mind-altering substances?
Don't tell anyone I'm married, okay?
Look, I'm yours. For better or for worse. I'm not going anywhere.
Why did you come back?
Came back to see you.
Mara looks great. I'm glad she finally got Danny to notice her.
Yeah, she does look great. I just hate the fact that she changed herself for him. 10 years ago, he wouldn't have been caught dead dancing with her.
Well, maybe he's changed too.
People don't change. Not like that.
Well, without the hope that people can change, what's the point of ever coming back to these things?
To prove they can't.
It's all fun and games to make him want you, but you know when to draw the line, right?
I just need another chance with him.
So, can we count you in?
Now, after viewing the film, my first question, I can't help but notice the specific and detailed use of color. Locations, scenically, costume, the palette is specific, bold, and it's got to be part of the visual language you were very interested in using. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Well, it started first with wardrobe. We wanted Mara in the beginning to kind of wash into the background, to kind of, you know, in the way she dressed and the way that she, you know, was living life. She was kind of just not
there.
Yeah, not there, which is really hard to do because Carrie Gagne is absolutely stunning and she just pops out no matter what because she has amazing eyes. So it's really hard to make her look drab.
Yeah.
But it started with, you know, a lot more muted colors and that sort of thing. And then as soon as she makes the decision to go or says that she's going to Portland and go back to the reunion, color starts to enter back.
I see that. Yeah. And it's almost as if her world begins to change as well as we go on the journey with her.
Yeah. And so it's kind of, the colors kind of represent, you know, a little bit of her accepting, the journey of accepting who she is.
So did you end up finding locations that happen to have such a vibrant color palette? I mean, talking about even when they go to the scene in the first social event, I mean, the colors are so distinct on the walls and the locations. How did that come up?
That was
just really good locations.
Should we just say happenstance? Because that was
a lot of the locations it was total happenstance. Like we found that it was a Mexican restaurant that had a bar in the back, and it was we were shooting that on a Sunday.
That was the very first day, Sunday.
Sunday, and it just so happened, like when we were contacting them, they were like, yeah, we don't even open the back bar on Sunday, so you guys can just have free reign of the place. And when we got in there on a location scout, I was like, oh my God,
look at the colors.
This is perfect. Yeah, exactly. So that just happened to work out. The hotels, for instance, we purposely chose hotel rooms that had lots of blue because, you know, blue offsets flesh tones very nicely since they're on the opposite sides of the color wheel. So that was done on purpose. And then a lot of the things that we did in post-production were on purpose as far as color grading the film to emphasize contrast. Like, for instance, the scene where Mara is talking to Topher on the phone outside of the gym.
Yes.
She's wearing the red dress and she's bathed in this magenta light.
Right.
But when we cut to Topher, he's in this room that is primarily yellow and green, and those are opposite sides of the color wheel as well because we wanted to
show that opposition.
Yeah, uneasy and kind of sick about the whole conversation because it is a pretty conversation.
And the magenta was admittedly a bit of an accident because we just had to we were using daylight balanced fluorescence, but the rest of the area outside was lit with I'm guessing sodium vapor lights, and when we gelled the fluorescence with CTO it made the
It caused a
it caused them
magenta-ish
to
glow.
turn into magenta, and we were like, well, hello, happy accident.
Yeah.
Well, and two, you know, that's kind of, we were talking about romantic comedies earlier. It's a little bit of a callback to Pretty Woman, the red dress.
Oh,
yeah. Well, that's referenced, remember,
Yes.
in the film too. So now the scenes themselves, because you feel like you're watching a film that's, you know, okay, this woman goes back and you know, I can guess that how some of these relationships will play out. And you were toying with me a little bit on that in a good way.
Yeah.
Because you were playing with my own predilections for the genre.
Yeah.
Oh, the handsome guy's gonna do her wrong. Oh,
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, the scenes themselves move into territory that's very difficult and are not anymore like the classic structured Hollywood scene. They go into difficult terrain. And I'm specifically talking about some of the really intense scenes between the two friends, where it seems like it goes beyond what we would expect into some very powerful levels. And it just felt to me like this is not just writing fiction. This is bringing up stuff that's lived. Can you talk a little bit about that in the approach to the writing of the film and how you work together in being willing to go there with the characters?
Well, when I first started writing Mara and Libby as a pair, I thought that they were kind of just two different sides of we all have like these different sides of our personality.
Yeah.
And like you have that one character being like, no.
She's on medication for it.
You know, that one character being like, come on, grow some balls, do it,
Right.
you know, kind of thing. And then someone, you know, vice versa. So I have that own internal struggle. But when I started writing the scenes, it kind of, we didn't notice it until later that I was really writing a lot of the relationship between my sister and I. And so while, of course, we took those to the next level, that's kind of where it came.
Well, that's what
from.
you feel. See, I guess that's what I was getting at, because I'm watching the scene, I'm going, this is, you know, it's when you're watching the scene and you go, I know this.
Yeah.
I know this difficult moment when you say to someone that close to you, you know, okay, that's what I am, and now what?
Yeah.
And it doesn't just cut away, but it goes on.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, that's got, so your own relationship with your sister comes
Yes.
in and informs this stuff. What about you, Kris, in that regard?
I guess the simple answer just came out of what I would want to see.
Well, you
know?
when we were talking earlier, you said something about because Lindy lived some of this, but you were able to work on it from the outside in a way. It allowed you an objectivity that, in a way, you know, created its own context for what you wanted the characters to do. And can you just give me an example of a situation where, like, you know, here they are and you're saying, well, this is what happened and this is my life, and you said, you know, but we got to go here because
I very clearly remember conversations like that. I'm trying to think of a scene that they go with.
Yeah.
So this was an ongoing rhythm, though.
Yes.
Oh yeah, all the
Okay.
time. Yeah, back. In the film that we're working on now, that exact thing happened. We were writing a scene, and Lindy had written a draft of it, and then I went and did a rewrite. And when I sent the rewrite back to her, she was like, "Oh my God, that's a scene from my life. How did you know that?" I'm like, "Well, you told it to me like 3 years ago, and I remembered, you know."
There you
but
go.
I was able to put it into a way that was. You know, because life is usually not interesting or cinematic, so it's just a matter of putting it into that package.
And it's the thing that I think was the most challenging was when you write, especially when you have such a connection to the character, you kind of want to show that character in the best light.
Yes.
A lot of the time.
Yes.
And there are times when Mara's not likable.
And maybe that's when it's good to have someone say,
you
let
know?
her go there.
Yeah, and for her
Don't be afraid to let her
be
go.
like, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
Why is that, you know, and for her to just say that out loud and admit that to someone else and be and have conviction saying it, or saying, I'm the girl who's done settling. That is I mean, every time we hear that line, that hurts. It
I know.
stings, especially being a married couple, to say that to your husband.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that I settled for you.
Yeah.
You know, ouch. Yeah. So,
Or the line at the end of one of the lines at the end of the film, which the first screening that we had of the film got a very odd reaction I didn't expect, but when he says, "Will you do it again?" and she responds, "I don't know." When we wrote that scene, literally we got to the point of the script where he's like, "Will you do it again?" and we were like, what would someone say here? Like, well, the answer would be no, of course I won't, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, yeah, but that feels just like the easy answer, you know, that's the thing that everyone says, but it's not true because you can't predict the future, even though you might have the best of intentions about it.
Right.
And then So we wrote we literally were looking at it. The scene I think started as sort of this like 8-page behemoth because it was going, and then eventually we just deleted all of it. It was just like, I don't know, let's just go with that, you know. Yeah. And then when we first showed the film, there was an audible gasp throughout the theater as people were like, oh my God, how dare, like, you know. I was like, that was interesting, but it was one of those moments that we went back and forth on it to try and get to that point of like, well, what's the honest answer?
And it is.
And this is one of those things that kind of came out even as we were editing the film. We realized that is ultimately the arc that every character goes through. They go from being duplicitous to being honest. Yeah. And it was honestly, it was something that wasn't intentional in the writing because we had different arcs in mind. And then as soon as we saw it, we were like, oh man,
this is what the story is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was
thinking you're in complete control and you're trying to do it your way to realizing the only way you can do it is through being honest.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of the conversations with the married couple, we definitely wanted to do that. We wanted to showcase these are conversations. I know we're not the only ones. These are conversations that a lot of married people are having, but to just be out there and show it so that people in the audience can be like, yeah, I've had that conversation. But you don't see that often.
Yeah.
Well, give us a little bit of a sense of where you're going from here. Now that Perfect 10 is out, you already mentioned you're working on. Can you give us a little, without going beyond the bounds of propriety as writers?
Yeah. Well,
there's actually the future.
Well, it's copyrighted, so
okay.
There's actually just in the time that in just the last year or so, we produced and edited the IFP Spotlight film from last year called Photo Booth, which was shot on 35mm, which was a really fun experience as an editor to get to work in that environment. We edited a film called Connect 2, which should start playing festivals very soon. And I was just up till 3:30 this morning, actually editing a film, one of the fly films for SIFT this year called Tilting at Windmills.
Okay.
And then we also have completed our second feature script. It's cast, it's crewed, and we are hoping to be shooting it very, very soon.
Very soon.
Fantastic. Can you give us a title?
Yes.
The Last Vacation.
Okay.
And so talk about marriage and that sort of thing. We have a family who's kind of been battered by the American dream and goes on vacation to reconnect.
Yeah.
The only problem is the dad is secretly unemployed and bankrupt. The mom wants out of her marriage, and their college-bound daughter is trying to escape her predetermined life. But in the end, they find that they have the power to break free, and they can do it together.
And will that also be shot here in the Northwest?
Mm-hmm. It'll actually almost be the exact same, the same formula, so to speak. Of we
like people to go on vacation.
Half of it in Seattle and half of it in Washington. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Love the film and wish you all success on the next project, The Last Vacation.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank you for watching Backstory. I'm Andrew Tsao, and I will see you soon behind the scenes.